What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast with Joey Mailari. So tonight, I'm going to preview Celtics Warriors Game 4 matchup, and then also break down how Games 1 through 3 went. Celtics currently up 2-1 in the series, so a big game tonight going into Game 4. I've really been surprised with how well the Celtics have been playing. I know going into the finals, my prediction was Warriors in 6, and I'm not the only one. Felger and Maz both had the Warriors winning. Chris Gasper had the Warriors winning in 6. Now he has them in 7. I believe Felger and Maz both stayed with the Warriors for now just because they didn't want to change their pick. Colin Cowherd had the Warriors winning. So I wasn't the only one thinking the Warriors would have been tough for the Celtics to stay up and compete with. But my biggest worry was transition points, and that's where the Celtics have actually been slowing them down, at least in Game 3. The Celtics played really well in that regard. Towards the end of the game, especially in the fourth quarter, the Celtics were elite on defense in the fourth quarter. But anyway, so in Game 1, the Celtics handed the Warriors their first playoff loss at home. The Warriors were 9-0 heading into that game at home. In that game, I mean, not everything was great. Obviously, the Celtics won, so all's well that ends well, I guess. But talking about Tatum, though, Tatum was horrific in Game 1. 3 of 17 from the floor, only scored 12 points. He did have 13 assists, so he was a playmaker at least, and was setting up the other guys on the team. But 3 of 17 from the floor, you can't have. But that's actually a worry for the Warriors. If Tatum's going 3 of 17 from the floor, not playing well, and the Celtics still win, that's a big worry for the Warriors. So, and another worry for the Warriors is they were scoreless. The Celtics got a 17-0 run in the fourth quarter. And that just can't happen if you're the Warriors. That's devastating, especially since they were up. I mean, the Warriors had a 15-point lead, blew it. Celtics went on that 17-0 run in the fourth quarter. Horford, Smart, and Derek White with the big three for the Celtics in a 5 to 6 minute span in the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Horford had 8 points, Smart had 6 points, and then White had 3. The Celtics were 6 of 11. From the floor with 7 rebounds in that stretch. And Golden State was 0 of 5 with 0 points I believe it was the 7-minute mark to like the 1-minute mark in the fourth quarter of Game 1, or the 6-minute mark to the 1-minute mark. So not a great finish for the Warriors in Game 1. Steph started out really hot at 21 points in the first quarter, had none in the second quarter, and then finished the game with 34, shot 7 of 14 from 3. Wiggins and Clay. Andrew Wiggins had 20 points. Klay Thompson had 15. Draymond Green was brutal in Game 1. 2 of 12 from the floor with 4 points. 0 of 4 from 3. 3 turnovers. Had 11 rebounds, I guess, so he contributed on the boards. He did foul out of that game. I'm going to get a little bit more into Draymond when I talk about how he performed in Game 3 and his whole podcast situation and everything I'm going to get into in a second. So the Celtics went on that 17-0 run. They outscored the Warriors 40-16 in the fourth quarter. The Warriors did outscore the Celtics 38-24 in the third quarter of Game 1, but the fourth quarter, the Celtics definitely rebounded well and got themselves back in the game to win it, which was huge. Horford was great, 26 points off 9 to 12 shooting. Jalen added 24 points, Smart had 18 points, White had 21. It was just a crazy game because you add all those points from Horford, White, and Smart. Those are all points you think that you'd have you think Tatum and Brown would combine for the amount that Horford, Smart, and White did. And that's the thing. Horford, Smart, and White combined for, 15 threes out of 23 attempts. So they're 15 of 23 from the floor. And then in Game 2 was a very different story. I'm going to get into that in a second as well. But those three guys, though, were just on something that night. Smart at 18, Derek White at 21, Horford at 26, Jalen at 24, and then obviously Tatum only finished with 12 points, I believe. Yeah, 12 points. So not the best night, but those big numbers, though, from the 15 to 23. If anyone's going to shoot 15 to 23 in the Celtics, you would think it would be, maybe Jalen, guess Tatum too. Tatum and Jalen, if they both got hot. You would never expect to be those three guys drilling threes, and especially in clutch moments. So the Horford's been playing really well on the playoffs, so I can't criticize him. But huge win for the Celtics in Game 1. As for the Warriors, though, that was a brutal way to lose the game, especially with how poor they played in the fourth quarter. Not often do you win games where your superstar player like Tatum doesn't have an A1 game, and that's a worry for the Warriors, that the Celtics can win games without Tatum having 40 points or 35 points. And Jalen had 24. So they don't even need a 30-point game from Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum to beat the Warriors, and that's a problem for the Warriors. So the Celtics became the first team in finals history to win by 10-plus points after trailing by 10-plus points entering the fourth quarter. So finished that fourth quarter very strong. Very good way to start the finals and get going. The Celtics are 8-2. They were 8-2 after that game on the road in the postseason, which was huge. Now 8-3, ended up losing game 2. But 8-3 on the road in the postseason, and the winner of game 1 has gone on to win 70.7 of the time in the NBA Finals. So just a couple statistics I wanted to share. Anyways, in game 2, brutal game for the Celtics. Tatum had the worst plus-minus of his career, -36. The next closest of the worst plus-minuses in the Celtics was Derek White with -17, so it's not close at all to Tatum's -36. Still not a good -17, but -36 is horrific. White, Horford, and Smart combined for 15 threes, as I said, in game 1. And then in game 2, much different story. White was 2 of 4 from 3. Horford was 0 of 0 from 3, and Smart was 0 of 3 from 3. So they combined there in game 2, 2 of 7 from 3, compared to 15 of 23 in game 1. And that's something that Draymond talked about after game 1, which I didn't disagree with him. I didn't like the way he said it, because obviously he's fueling to the fire, giving the Celtics some motivation to get going. But him saying after game 1 that, not every night, basically, that you're going to have Al Horford, Derek White, and Marcus Smart, go 15 to 23 from 3. I don't disagree with him there. I think he has a point. You're not going to have 15 to 23 every single night from those guys, but maybe just the way he said it, I wasn't too big of a fan of. But he's not wrong. I guess in game 2, they didn't really play that well. Although game 3, Marcus Smart played really well. I think he had 24, which I'm going to get to in a second. Anyways, though, so I said a combined 15 to 23 in game 1. Just 4 points combined for Horford and Smart. They had 2 points apiece. And were 2 of 10 from the floor in game 2. So it was a much different game for the Celtics. The Warriors' defense was much better in game 2, though. They forced 19 turnovers, had 15 steals. And that's something the Celtics were taking advantage of in game 1. The Warriors and the Celtics both have the top defenses in the NBA, but in game 2, the Warriors were just all over the Celtics. Seemed like they game planned a lot better than they did in game 1. So I give them credit. Give credit where it's due. Tatum was 8 of 19 from the floor in game 2, 28 points, 6 of 9 from 3. The Warriors had 15 steals for the Celtics 5, so 10 more steals than the Celts. The Celts had 18 turnovers. The Warriors only had 12. So those are margins you really can't win many games with. So the Warriors ended up winning game 2 by 19 points. They held a 29-point lead actually at one point, but the Celtics cut it down to 19 by the end of the game. Anyways, the Celtics were outscored in the paint in game 2, 40-24. A big reason was Robert Williams' exit early in the game. He only played 14 minutes in game 2. Only finished with 2 points, 2 rebounds, 3 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Smart and Horford only had 2 points apiece. There was a lot of things, a lot of reasons why the Warriors outscored the Celtics in the paint. And I think the main reason is Robert Williams. He's been the X factor for the Celtics, been the best player on the floor every time he's in there. It's not all about scoring. I know the NBA, typically everyone's looking for who's putting up the most points, but Robert Williams has the biggest impact, I think, on the Celtics of any player. When he's out there, the Celtics are a different team. As you saw that in game 2, the Celtics got absolutely dominated in the paint 40-24, but in game 3, much different story, 52-26, with Robert Williams out there. Anyways, in game 2, Steph finished with 29 points off 9 of 21 from shooting and 9 of 21 shooting, to go along with 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. Clay was awful in game 2, 4 of 19 shooting from the floor, 1 of 8 from 3, finished with 11 points. Warriors still got the win, so even though he wasn't on his A game, they ended up still winning the game. So that was something for them to build off of, was even though Clay didn't have a great game, they still won. Clay rebounded well, though, and played well in game 3. Anyways, moving on to game 3, Jaylen scored or assisted on 24 of the Celtics' 33 points in the first quarter. He played all 12 minutes of the first. Jaylen was an absolute workhorse. He was going to work right away for the Celtics. The Celtics really needed that, especially after losing game 2. And having a game, an NBA Finals game back at the TD Garden for the first time since 2010, it was just a crazy atmosphere. Everyone was going nuts, which is great. It's exciting, especially being a Boston sports fan. You can never have too many wins, especially with the Celtics. There's been high expectations now for the past 5, 6, 7 years, really about 6 years now, and we haven't been able to get to the NBA Finals. So getting over that hump just proves why everyone was going nuts at the TD Garden, especially early on in Game 3. So to continue on about Jaylen Brown's terrific performance in the first quarter, he had 17 points in the first quarter, tailed off only at 10 points in the next three quarters, but finished with 27 in the game, which was huge. Celtics really needed it. Great way for the Celtics to get back on track after losing Game 2, winning Game 3 at home. Huge way to get the Celtics momentum back. Game 4 tonight will be a huge one. But anyways, a couple things I want to highlight. The Celtics dominated the glass 47-31. That's the Robert Williams effect. Robert Williams returned in Game 3 healthy. The Celtics had 52 points in the paint to the Warriors 26. The Celtics had 15 offensive boards. The Warriors only had 6. As I said, the Celtics out-rebounded the Warriors 47-31. 16 extra rebounds. Had 15 offensive boards. And as I said, I think Robert Williams is the biggest X factor on the Celtics. I think he's the most important player on the Celtics. I think he's the most influential. When he's on the floor, the Celtics are a different team. He had 8 points to go along with 10 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 blocks, 26 minutes of action. Very efficient. Maybe the most valuable player on the Celtics. Truly, I believe it, because they are not the same team without him out there. He's a huge rim protector. Every single time he's out there, he's blocking shots, deterring the opponent from driving to the basket, getting rebounds, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. Great rim protector. A crazy block on Steph in Game 3. His vertical's nuts. He's just a great player all around. So what a draft pick by Danny Ainge, putting him on this Celtics team. They've always needed a center that can get rebounds. The Celtics, were getting out-rebounded the past 2 or 3 years. It's been awful in the paint, especially last year against the Nets, the 2021 NBA Finals. The Celtics, in 2021 playoffs, the Celtics were just getting out-rebounded a ton by that Nets team. But this year's obviously a different story with Robert Williams fully healthy and getting 25-plus minutes a night. Williams finished with the best plus of minus on the Celtics team with a plus 21, which was huge. Just shows how much an effect he has on the game when he's out there. Anyways, the Celtics won by 16 in Game 3, only allowed 11 points to the Warriors in the fourth quarter, so the Celtics finished the game very strong. And that's one thing the Celtics have been struggling with is the third quarter. They've been recovering well in the fourth quarter, but third quarters continue to be a problem where the Celtics just lose control and nearly give up the game. That's something that has to be fixed, something that has to be worked on, especially if you want to win the NBA Finals. You still got to win another 2 games. I know Game 3 was a huge win. You still need to win another 2 games. You need to get the third quarter correct and get that fixed. And that's a problem. The Celtics blew an 18-point lead in Game 3. The Celtics had a minus 14 plus minus in the third quarter of Game 1, a minus 8 plus minus in the third quarter of Game 3. So that point differential, minus 14 to minus 8 in the third quarter of Games 1 and Game 3. Definitely have to get better. They recovered well in the fourth quarter. Both those games ended up winning. But you'd rather play well in the third quarter and just feel a little bit more comfortable going into the fourth quarter. One turnover for the Celtics in the first 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. That was a big reason the Celtics ended up winning that game. I was just getting back on track. One turnover in 9 minutes of the Celtics is huge, especially with how much Tatum's been turning the ball over. He's averaging 4 turnovers a game in the playoffs right now, which needs to be fixed. Anyways, Jaylen had 17 points, I said, in the first quarter. Started very hot. At one point, it was 83-82 Warriors, and after that point, the Celtics outscored them 33-17. The Celtics only allowed 11 points in the fourth quarter. So that was huge. The Warriors didn't start hot, though, at all. They were 2 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter. And that's something that was a little bit surprising that they got such a big lead and really started out cold. But the Celtics, weren't on their A game. They really got on in the fourth quarter, really started getting going. But the first quarter, the Celtics were playing very well. Jaylen Brown was playing on his A game. But besides that, it was definitely tough until the fourth quarter. That's when the Celtics really started getting going. Anyways, Steph Curry, though, has been getting kind of locked up by Marcus Smart. An interesting stat I saw from StatMuse today was that when defended by Marcus Smart, Steph Curry only has 12 points in 3 games to go along with 3 assists, 4 turnovers, and he's shooting 33% from 3 and 36% from the floor when covered by Marcus Smart. The Celtics were 10 of 14 with Steph as the primary defender against them. So they've been scoring a ton. 71% they're shooting from the floor when Steph's covering them. And then you have Marcus Smart locking up Steph when he's covering him. It's not every possession. It's not very often. But you have Marcus Smart playing great defense. Defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart, playing great defense when he's covering Steph. Steph did finish Game 3 with 31 points off 6-11 shooting from 3. Then Clay woke up also in Game 3, 25 points off 5-13 shooting from 3. He was 1 of 8 from 3 in Game 2. So he had to get going for them to have any chance. And that's one thing that was interesting. Steph only had one free throw attempt in Game 3, which is the fewest in the NBA playoffs for him this year, especially considering how much he drives. Only one free throw is definitely surprising, especially to me, since I always say, they want to make games close and make series go to 7 games. So they usually call more fouls, try to keep the games always in check. Anyways, the biggest storyline after Game 3 was Draymond Green. After the first 3 games of the series, he had 15 points to 15 fouls in the NBA Finals. He fouled out of 2 of 3 games, Games 1 and Game 3. He amassed, as I said, 15 points, only 15 points in 3 games to go along with 15 fouls, which is nuts. In Game 3 was brutal once again, 2 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers to go along with that, and 6 fouls. He fouled out of the game. I saw a StatMuse tweet that said that Draymond Green has uploaded more podcast episodes in the playoffs than he has games with double-digit points, double-digit rebounds, and double-digit assists, which is just crazy. Draymond has more techs, actually, in the NBA Finals. 1 tech. Could have been 2. He could have got a second one when he tried to pull Jaylen Brown's pants down in Game 2. Then he has 3-pointers made. He has 0 points, 0 3-pointers made so far in the NBA Finals, which is nuts. 4 techs in the playoffs so far for Draymond. Another interesting thing about his podcast, he has more podcast episodes uploaded in the NBA Finals, 3 of them now, after every game, than block shots. He only got 2 block shots through 3 games. He's supposed to be a defensive force. I know he's a little bit washed up on the offensive end. He's not going to give you 8 to 10 points a game like he used to consistently every night. But the defense, too, though, only 2 block shots usually is better than that. He made 6 3-pointers in the postseason and has uploaded 17 podcast episodes. I know I'm comparing some crazy things, but he's definitely focused in on the podcast heavily, which I don't think is the worst thing. I know a lot of people are down on him about that, saying he's not focused, which I get. I think he should be focused on winning the NBA Finals too, but the podcast, from what I've seen, I've only seen a couple of them, it just seems like a post-game press conference where he just tells you what went on in the game. So I don't think it's the worst thing, but I guess if his teammates were to have a problem with it, then it is a problem. He's got to focus more on trying to win, watch film, practice, figure out what's going wrong, what's going right for the Warriors. Brian Barrett of WEEI pointed out that he has more podcast episodes than shots made outside the paint in the NBA Finals, which is nuts. That's a crazy statistic, which I'm going to try to pull up more from what he said. He said Draymond through 3 games, 3 of 5 in the restricted area, 2 of 7 from floater range, and 0 of 0 from mid-range, 0 of 2 from corner threes, and 0 of 5 from above the break threes. And he said he's recorded more podcasts than shots made outside the paint, which is nuts in the NBA Finals. He's definitely got to focus and get locked in, especially if the Warriors want to have a chance to win. But as I said, I don't think it's the worst thing at the end of the day, his podcast, since it's on his own time and everything. But this is what he had to say about it on his podcast about everyone criticizing him. So here you go.
Listen, blah, blah, blah. Listen, y'all gonna get this podcast. Like I told y'all at the beginning of these playoffs, this podcast ain't going nowhere. I'm going to leave the arena. I'm going to return to this hotel room. I'm going to return to my home when we're back in San Francisco, and I'm going to film this podcast. It will then be uploaded by Jackson. It will be edited by Jackson and uploaded by Jackson, and then you will turn this podcast on and you will listen.
So there you go. There's the Draymond Green podcast on Volume Sports. That's where I just got that clip from. But that's him breaking down that you're going to get this podcast no matter whether you like it or you don't like it. And he got a lot of criticism. I'm going to play an Isaiah Thomas clip. Former NBA legend Isaiah Thomas really went in on Draymond Green for his focus on the podcast, not focusing on winning the NBA Finals.
It really is about your mental toughness and your mental focus in being able to totally 100% concentrate on your opponent, shutting him down, understanding their offensive and defensive schemes. And anytime you lose that focus or that concentration, and you're talking about Cedric Maxwell, and you're talking about podcast, and you're talking about the fans.
Don't talk about X and O's, though.
Then you have lost, you have really lost your concentration and your focus. And where does that show up? That show up in the box score in a game like tonight, where you play 34 minutes, you have 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 points. Draymond Green does that in a grade school game, not in the NBA Finals. So when you talk about focus, this is what the NBA Finals is about. And right now, he has lost focus in terms of concentrating on beating the opponent. He's not talking about Jaylen Brown. He's not talking about Tatum. He's not talking about Marcus Smart. He's talking about podcasts, and he's talking about Cedric Maxwell and the fans. Concentration needs to come back on the Boston Celtics players who you're playing against out on the floor.
So there you go. There's Isaiah Thomas giving his opinion on Draymond Green's podcast. I don't think Draymond's podcast would be the reason that the Warriors were to win or lose. I don't think it makes that big of a difference at the end of the day since it's on his own time. But one thing about it is, though, he did record that podcast after Game 3 at 3 a.m., he said. And I haven't eaten dinner yet, he said, and I could be watching film, but you're getting this podcast right now for now instead. So I guess maybe, he's putting too much focus on it. But at the end of the day, it felt just like a post-game press conference. It didn't feel like, he prepared, a 20-minute presentation and then went in depth on plays and was breaking down film. It seems like he just, opened a mic and just started talking for 25 minutes. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it could be a distraction. A distraction, especially in the NBA Finals, could be a reason you do lose if the team thinks, Draymond's not fully locked in right now. He's not paying attention. If the team feels as though Draymond's not locked in, then it's an issue. And the Warriors will have to talk to him about it. And maybe tell him, if you're going to upload a podcast, make it quick. You don't want to be spending 35, 45 minutes every single night or after every single game breaking down, plays, which I don't think he gives anything away in it. It's not what he's saying, this is our game plan for Game 4 and this is how we're going to go about it. But I do think maybe at the end of the day, if he's going to be uploading them, you can't stop him from doing that, especially since it's on his own time. But a distraction like this, even if I don't think it's going to be the reason the Warriors were to lose a series if they were to, any distraction is going to be brought out into a bigger way, and it's going to be publicized a lot more heavily like you've seen on YouTube, and his podcast on YouTube is getting a lot of views, but I mean, like you're going to see on Twitter and Instagram, everyone's going to be blowing it up. He's going to be getting a lot more views on YouTube too, because everyone's going to be wanting to listen in, so I guess he's getting his attention and getting more views and more clicks, but at the end of the day, I'm sure he wants to win the NBA Finals too, so I'm not really doubting his drive like some people are. Anyways, the Celtics defense clamped Steph in the fourth quarter. The Celtics forced 3 turnovers from Steph Curry in the fourth quarter, and only allowed him to get 4 shots off. Marcus Smart responded huge on defense in Game 3, and then also on offense too. 24 points after just having 2 in Game 2. And that was the thing. The Celtics defense has been elite. Has been the best in the NBA just about all season long. And that's the thing. The Warriors, I was worried about the Celtics giving up transition points to the Warriors, which the Warriors have blown leads. A 15-point lead in Game 2. In Game 1, they had let me see, what was their biggest lead? I just pointed it out a minute ago. They blew a 15-point lead in Game 1. Celtics ended up winning. Game 2, the Warriors had a 29-point lead, ended up, still winning by 19, but they had a 29-point lead in Game 2, a 15-point lead in Game 1, and then in Game 3, the Celtics blew an 18-point lead and let the Warriors back into it. So the Warriors have been going on runs, and they're capable. As I said, they took an 83-82 point lead at one point in the third quarter. They are very capable of going on runs. As I said, they were 15 in Game 1, 29 in Game 2 at one point, and then in Game 3, came back down 18 and had a 1-point lead. So that's one thing that I worried about the Celtics. It's still something I worry about for them, is finding a way to close out games in the third and fourth quarter, where if you have a big lead, let's say you're up 18 like Celtics were going into the third quarter, or in the third quarter at one point, you have to keep your foot on the gas pedal. This Warriors team, they're going to go in 8-0, 9-0 runs on a blink with how well they shoot from 3, especially Steph. He's been on. You can't complain. Steph Curry has been the leading scorer in all 3 games. He needs some help out there, though. Draymond's averaging 5 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, but shooting just 26% from the field. Klay Thompson's not the same Klay Thompson defensively that he was before his 2 major injuries. Contributed well on offense in Game 3. And then Jordan Poole did not have a great Game 3. Kuminga, Moses Moody, and then Jonathan Kuminga off the bench don't really contribute much. They really only played in garbage minutes for the most part. Kevon Looney, he's not a big rim protector, so you're not going to get too many block shots on defense. And then obviously Draymond's not the same player he once was. It's just tough for Steph since he's been playing so well. He just hasn't gotten the help that he really needs. So the Warriors now 3-5 on the road in the postseason. They're 5-0 following a loss in the postseason. So like the Celtics were 6-0 following a loss in the postseason. Now the Warriors are 5-0. So going into tonight, Game 4, with the Warriors being 5-0, I'm sure they're going to try to bounce back and make it 6-0. Both the Celtics and Warriors play very well after losses, so we'll have to see how tonight goes. The Celtics are 12-0 in the NBA Finals, historically, with a 2-1 lead. I'm going to give another couple things. The Celtics are 7-0 after losing a game in the postseason in the playoffs this year. That ties the record for consecutive wins following losses in the NBA playoffs. 7 for the Celtics. That comes from a stat from NBC Sports Boston. Golden State's now 0-3 in Game 3 of the NBA Finals under Steve Kerr when the series is tied 1-1 going into Game 3. So just a couple things to break down some trends historically in the past of where the Celtics and Warriors stand compared to their last times in the NBA Finals. Anyways, big game tonight for the Celtics. Hopefully they can pull off a win. If I had to guess right now, I'm going to say I think the Warriors bounce back, make it 2-2. And then we'll see what happens in Game 5. But that's only just because the Warriors have been playing so well after losses. The Celtics have been having a really, really hard time in the third quarter, and that's an issue. If you're playing really bad for a full quarter of a game, you're not going to always win, just by coming back and playing strong in the fourth quarter. You need to play well in the third quarter, so you don't need a historical comeback or, a miraculous comeback in the fourth quarter. So if I had to guess right now, I'm going to say Warriors win Game 4. I still think, I had the Warriors winning originally, just like Colin Cowherd and Chris Gasper of Channel 5, just like Felger and Maz. Felger actually stayed with his Warriors pick. Maz stayed with his Warriors pick, I believe, just for now, since they didn't want to change it. And then I believe Chris Gasper said he had Warriors in 6 originally, changed it to Warriors in 7. Not sure what Colin Cowherd, I think he's trending more towards the Celtics now. If I had to pick right now in the series, right now from this point on, I'd say the Celtics. But as for a Game 4, who I think is going to win, I think the Warriors bounce back tonight, win on the road. I know they're 3-5 on the road, so not playing too well. But I think they bounce back tonight. I think Steph has a good game. They need a little bit more offense out of guys like Klay Thompson. Andrew Wiggins isn't playing well, but they need more offense consistent offense, I should say, out of Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins. Maybe even a couple points out of Draymond. If they can get 8 to 10 points out of Draymond. Draymond's just been shooting horrible from the floor, 26%. But if they can get 8 to 10 points from Draymond, that makes you have to at least cover him. If he hits a couple threes, you have to cover him from 3. Spreads the floor a little bit, makes it a little bit easier for Steph and guys to drive down the lane. So we'll see how it goes. Go Celts, though. Should be a big one. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I might have another episode upload tomorrow on Saturday. Maybe I'll break down the Celtics game and then talk about the NHL playoffs and a couple other things. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a good one. Enjoy the game tonight and go Celts.